Don't chew on that, Max.
Cooper loves that chew too.
Oh, now he's into Cooper's food. Wow, he is loving it. What do you feed Cooper?
Blue Buffalo Life Protection Formula. He never leaves a crumb. I love it because it's made with high-quality protein, nutrient-rich fruits and veggies, and wholesome whole grains.
Looks like we're switching to Blue.
Blue Buffalo foods are made with the superior ingredients your dog needs to thrive. Can your dog food say that? Visit feedbluefood.com to learn more.
Unfiltered discussions. Unexpected guests. No topic is off limits, from sex and relationships to the human condition, personal anxieties, and so much more. The only talk show of its kind in the world. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Hello and welcome and Happy New Year. I hope you had a nice one. New Year's Eve, that is. A lot to cover tonight, but first, here are some of the things you'll learn on tonight's program. When robo-taxis get stuck, littered all over the road, who will you call? Not Batman, but a real human. In 10 minutes' time, we'll talk a real-world example of robotic cars, autonomous vehicles stuck all over the street that required humans to fix the problem. So those videos of San Francisco taxis without drivers, well, in them, not all is as it seems. After that, a look at how scientists are using AI tools in academic publishing. More papers are getting spit out than ever, but is this a good thing? That we'll discuss later in the hour. Lots more to cover. Let's dive in.
Want to be part of The Last Show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Da-na-na-na-na-na-na. His name is Tony 5. Maybe 6? Tony 2026, baby.
Maybe we should rename it, David. Merry New Year!
Thank you, Tony. Tony 5 is our foreign correspondent in London, England, and he is here to report on some important news from the city of Birmingham, is it?
Birmingham, yeah. I think it's classed as a second city in the UK after London. Very big city. Good fun, great times. Obviously, David, we are now talking 2026, but the big night is the 31st of December 2025, right?
What happens?
This is where everybody gathers.
Oh.
It's the new... do you not know it? Do you not celebrate it over there?
I think I have heard of that, actually. The New Year's Eve. Yeah, I've heard of it.
I don't know whether it's hit New York City just yet. Maybe soon you guys will do something to celebrate. What do you think?
I think maybe people here might get their act together and finally do a New Year's Eve celebration. But let's stick with Birmingham, the second city in the UK, according to you. I think what you meant to say was second biggest. You friend of mine.
Well, it's the second city, I guess.
I'm feeling nice today.
I know you are. Basically, what's nice is that historically, I think it was many, many years ago, 2018, they had a big fireworks display, huge fireworks display, and it was great and it was wonderful. And there was also articles written about it. So historically, but for the last 2 years in a row, people have been posting these sort of fake sort of invitations to this free fireworks display, and like hundreds, if not thousands of people, I mean, like maybe like late hundreds of people turned up in the middle of this city waiting for a fireworks display that never happened. And the police have to be called out to disperse these people. They're all really angry. They're all staring at the sky. 10, it was very, very fun. 9. Again, just standing there. 1, -1, -3.
Oh, maybe our clocks were off.
Yeah.
I love the idea that the internet is trolling these people and getting them to try to show up.
I just think it's brilliant. And there's all these, like, now, obviously, there's like TikToks and Facebook's posts of people just getting angry and, like, you know, and it was really, really, really cold. So for England, anything below 0, people just fall apart. We're just not used to it. So currently, where I am, just north of London, it's like -3. And the infrastructure's crop, it's like Armageddon. There's people like flat on the floor in the streets. There's carnage. We've run out of toilet paper in supermarkets. It's like the pandemic again. It's horrific.
I love the idea that Birmingham, you know what? They should pivot and be like, it's the most exciting, boring New Year's celebration in all of England. Come to the center of the city. Nothing will happen.
And just stand there. Now, you see, I think that would be like an anti-capitalist, anti-consumerism thing where you go and stand somewhere for fireworks night on the 31st and nothing happens.
I just think it doesn't even need to be anti-capitalist, anti-consumerism. It can just be embracing the stupidity. It's just absurd. Like, oh, and then the city rallies behind it. 100 years from now, Birmingham is known for its New Year's celebration where nothing happens. Yeah.
or all the crowd just makes noises like boo, bang, poo. That would be even better.
I was here in New York City, which, despite what I might have said earlier, does one or two minor New Year's Eve celebrations, as far as I know. We'll talk about Times Square in a second. I did not go, but I went on top of a building, a friend's apartment.
Wow.
And I was trying to start the count early. So every 5 minutes, I would be like, 10.
10.
And then people would start joining. And by the end of it, every time I said the word 10, my friends would be like, shut up. Even the strangers on the roof were mad at me. But, you know, you got to have...
Was it like a cry wolf situation? And
Yeah.
then when you really did do it, it was 2026 and it was like 12:30.
Kind of. When people really started doing it, they were like 10, 9. And then when they got to like 7, I said 10, 9, just to get it.
I love the way you don't care about antagonizing people in the slightest, do you?
I am a youngest brother at heart. I mean, afterward, my girlfriend Miranda was like, that was such like little brother energy.
Yeah.
But something similar happened in New York. I think people crowded by Brooklyn Bridge Park with the promise of fireworks, and there were not fireworks there, which is very funny to me. But there were fireworks, of course, in other parts of the city, so I don't think it was quite the same as Birmingham.
Yeah.
But let's talk about Times Square.
Yeah, to me, obviously as a Brit, and Times Square is like a bucket list event for New Year's Eve. You've got that, you've got Sydney Harbour Bridge, which is a huge bucket list. Obviously, I've seen the London fireworks many, many years. Huge. So London ones were the biggest in Europe this year. It cost millions of pounds, a good 15 minutes. I have my own opinion about big fireworks displays like that, which I'll tell you at the end, but it was an amazing...
Coming up in the next 3 minutes' time, Tony Five's opinions on fireworks. Now we got a cliffhanger, now we got a narrative on the show.
I think, personally, that sending off millions of pounds worth of fireworks...
You just said you were going to say this in 3 minutes. Now you're saying it now?
Okay, shall I do it in 3 minutes?
Yeah,
David,
this is
a
the countdown.
disorganized chaos.
This is...
Do you know what? I might not even do it as a tribute to the people of Birmingham. So you're all expecting it to happen and just not do it.
But Times Square, it may be on your bucket list, but don't just consider it as going down there, enjoying the energy of New York City on New Year's Eve.
I know.
What also is included in that list is being squeezed in like cattle, unable to move for many, many hours.
Yep.
And of course, the adult diapers.
Correct.
People wear what are you, nuts? I would never do that. Would you do that?
It's a genuine thing because I read about it, because there's no toilets and people won't leave to go to the toilet because they lose their place.
Exactly. There are toilets, but if you go to the toilet, you're not getting back to your friends.
Yeah, so you lose them. So there are men and women who wear adult diapers so that they can, relieve themselves, and they change them midway. So if they take 5, 6, 7 pairs of diapers, and obviously it was very cold, right? It's cold in New York at the moment.
Wait, they changed them?
Yeah, of course they do. They're not going to walk around with wet diapers, dude.
Oh my God. Could you imagine like you're a young, handsome man next to a young, handsome woman and you've been flirting all night and it's 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You're about to finally kiss this stranger. The energy's perfect. But what's going on under your trousers, I used a British word, trousers.
Thank you.
Under your pants is not romantic at all. I couldn't even imagine.
Well, that's how I met my last girlfriend, and it wasn't even New Year's Eve. It was a Thursday.
I guess this is romance in the old folks' home, which, no shade on that. When elderly
absolutely.
people in the old folks' homes find love, that warms my heart. So maybe I just need to change my expectations around what New Year's is.
Yeah, it's all about piano playing and tenor ladies, I believe it's called.
All right, we are about to get Tony's opinion on fireworks, although he sort of half gave it to us when we get to our countdown of what Tony's opinion will be. That's coming up in about 30 seconds. What did you do for New Year's?
I was on call. I was working, so I didn't do much. I watched the on TV. You can see them, but it's really weirdly filtered, David. So our national broadcaster, BBC, they use something called hollow gauze. I don't know whether you've ever heard of it, but basically, in the middle of the London Eye, they project things that can only be seen on TV. So if you're there looking at the fireworks, you see all the fireworks, but you don't see the images that are broadcast in the actual eye itself.
Weird.
And it's called hollow gauze.
Hollow gauze?
Hollow gauze, as in like a gauze strip, like a gauze painting. Yeah, it's a technology.
Cool.
Google it, guys.
Well, we're about to get to Tony's opinion on fireworks in 10, 9, Tony 5, thank you for being here. 5, 3, 2, 1.
I think they're a waste of money because people are starving and homeless.
Way to really end with an uplifting one there, Tony.
Merry New Year, people.
Coming up next, your look at the tech stories of the day, including why the U.S. has banned foreign-made drone models. They say it's about spying, but that laptop and phone you use, that was also foreign-made.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. This is your nightly dose of chaos, confession, and questionable life choices. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Robo-taxi gridlock. It sounds like a problem in the future, but it's a problem in the now. It happened in San Francisco some time ago when there was a power outage. There was total gridlock. These Waymo cars just stopped working. I am here with Carmi Levy, a tech analyst for It's Time for Technology Time, to talk about a potential solution to robo-taxi gridlock. Carmi, welcome.
Good to be with you, David. Happy New Year.
I really wish I wasn't living in a world where the phrase robo-taxi gridlock comes up numerous times in an introduction for a guest, but here we are.
Yeah, it's a little too dystopian for my taste as well. I mean, this happened in San Francisco. A third of the city went dark during a power outage, and the vehicles, rather than pull over to the side, Waymo, they have about 800 autonomous vehicles crawling the streets of San Francisco, and the ones that were driving at the time, they literally stopped dead where they were, or in many cases, they proceeded to the intersection, looked for a traffic light, couldn't find it, and then stopped in the middle of the intersection, making, of course, a bad situation even worse. The company says they understand the problem. They weren't able to communicate with the mothership. The network that connects them was also down. They've introduced additional redundancies, and they've reintroduced the taxis to service and say it won't happen again. But an interesting sort of side story came out from this, from the power outage story, was that when Waymos get to their destination, a lot of people get out of them and they don't close the door. And so apparently Waymo's been paying humans, regular people. They have the Honk app and they reach out to them through the Honk app, and it's usually used for parking. And they ask them to go find these vehicles and close the doors so that they can continue providing autonomous service. Apparently they can drive themselves, but they can't close their own darn doors. And I found that kind of amusing.
Aren't there cars with little mechanisms to just automatically close the door like a trunk? You'd think they wouldn't add that?
A lot of minivans have sliding doors, and so one of the solutions to this is they are working on minivans that have motorized doors and incorporating that into the software, but that's not ready yet, and of course it'll take time. Most of the Waymo vehicles are not minivans. They do not have motorized opening and closing doors, so they're going to have to renew the fleet and incorporate those minivans in before this becomes a solution. So
but this idea of like having human intervention subtly behind the scenes for your quote-unquote autonomous vehicles, I think that's kind of, it's like, it shows that behind the scenes these aren't quite as autonomous as you'd think.
They aren't. I mean, a couple of years ago, I think it was Uber, because Uber had also been doing, on-the-road pilots of their autonomous technology, and it was found out that in many cases, it wasn't autonomy that was driving the cars. It was Uber employees who were driving them via remote control. So the cars looked like they were robotic, but they actually weren't. And so it's almost like behind the scenes, behind the drapes, there are humans hiding, pulling the strings like puppets. And that's what seems to be the case here, is for all the advanced technology that Waymo, which is an Alphabet project, it's the same company that owns Google, it's kind of like their moonshot at autonomy, for all the technology that they've developed and that they're throwing at this problem, sometimes it's the littlest things that absolutely get you, and you kind of still need humans to figure it out. So kind of amusing.
It reminds me of the Mechanical Turk or the automatic chess player that like in the 1700s someone gave some empress and it was like a chess machine, but there was really just a dude inside, like operating the chess pieces.
All is not as it seems.
Because, of course, in the 1700s, we didn't have computers.
Of course.
But yeah, how could this human intervention prevent gridlock from happening?
So I mean, the problem is when if a Waymo vehicle stops and someone leaves and doesn't close the door behind them, it can't go anywhere, and it's basically stuck in place. And so imagine, in front of a hotel, a whole bunch of Waymos that have arrived to drop people off at a red carpet event, and all of their doors are just slightly ajar, and they can't move from where they are. And so there have been instances where just entire neighborhoods were just completely gridlocked because a bunch of different Waymos sort of showed up, but then couldn't continue where they were going, and they were waiting for humans to show up to close the door for them. So, we're still nowhere near, and we keep seeing headlines like this, we're still nowhere near the point where autonomy is fully ready to take over. We seem to believe, we listen to hucksters like Elon Musk who say that, autonomy is right around the corner, but full level 5 autonomy where humans don't ever have to touch a steering wheel or a brake pedal, we're nowhere near there. And it's probably going to be a while before that happens. We'll continue to see stories like this play out. And some of them will be funny, but also some of them are going to be a little bit less than funny. And that's something to keep in mind when you decide, maybe I should take a ride in a Waymo. If you want to get there on time, maybe not.
All right, well, let's talk about a little less than funny autonomous technology. Let's talk about drones. I'm still thinking of that thing in New Jersey mid last year when there was just like so many drones in New Jersey for whatever reason. Probably just some schmuck was trolling the state. But people thought they were UFOs or secret government drones, or maybe like the Chinese were spying on New Jerseyans. Of all people, to spy on the people of New Jersey? If I was Russia or China or some foreign country who sought to spy on the U.S., near an airport in New Jersey is not where I would do it, but that's besides the point. Drones, though, who knows what tech is inside them? And it looks like the U.S. is not allowing foreign-made drones as of now, new ones built.
Yeah, the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, they announced they've updated their what they call their covered list, which is communication services, equipment, hardware that are not allowed in the U.S. because of security concerns. And so they've added all foreign-made drones and drone-related components to that list. So if you have, say, and the most popular drone in America, in the world, is made by DJI, which is a Chinese company. So if you have a DJI drone, and a lot of people do, it will still continue to work. But as this list takes effect, you will not be able to buy new ones. And of course, over time, DJI will probably not be updating the software on the existing ones, or it won't be making parts available. It might not be able to even bring in parts to fix your old DJI drones. So there are literally millions of people out there who, at some point, their drones are going to go dark, and the leading drone company in the world now faces absolute extinction in the U.S. because the government says, because this is Chinese made, it presents a national security concern. What I find funny, though, is, of course, drones can soak up a lot of information, a lot of data from some potentially sensitive places. If China wanted to spy on us, that would be a likely vector for them to use. However, I'm looking around my home office now, and I'm looking at all the devices that I have that were also manufactured in China. So if you're going to target drones, you probably may want to target every other electronic device that we're buying both in Canada and in the U.S.
Like the Mac computer I'm sitting at taping our call on. And
exactly. Exactly. Your Mac, my Mac, the iPhone that's sitting here, the iPad that's behind me. I mean, pretty much everything, the smart speakers that sit behind me as well. All of these devices are Chinese made, and they're all, I've already installed the apps for all of them. I've given them permission to collect all sorts of information. And they were made in China. And if China wanted to install a backdoor, they probably could. So it makes for really great political theater when the U.S. government says, okay, we're going to ban these because it's a national security concern. But if you really were concerned about national security, you would essentially sell no electronics in your country at all.
It feels more like whack-a-mole than it does like smart targeting of devices that present a risk to the country kind of thing.
Yeah, it does. And quite frankly, it hurts. There are a lot of small businesses that use these devices for their work. Think about real estate, that
film. I mean, some of these amazing shots you see in movies are all drones.
Exactly. And so imagine not being able to do so. Your entire workflow is built around these technologies. And if they're suddenly no longer available, what do you do? So maybe you might be able to buy a homegrown drone, but let's face it, the American drone manufacturing base is nowhere near as well developed as the Chinese one, and the costs will be significantly higher. So yet again, all you've really done is punish the consumer because now they have less choice and it's going to cost them more.
Well, speaking of new tech, if you want to buy a new computer, you might want to do it now, although it might be too late. There is currently a crunch on memory. What does that mean? Computer memory, a major component to your laptop, is so expensive these days. When we come back, we'll talk why and what the impact on the market for new PCs is going to be in 2026. We're here with Carmi Levy. It is time for Technology Time. We'll continue in just one moment.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Olivia Culpo here to tell you all about the launch of the new Abercrombie Spring Denim collection, made the way denim should feel. Their denim has always been a staple in my wardrobe and has a wide range of fits, styles, and washes. Every jean is available in both their classic fit and viral curve love. Shop in the app, online, and in stores.
Your nightly dose of unfiltered opinions and unexpected conversations. Unexpected Conversations. The last show with David Cooper.
Want to buy a new computer? Well, you might find the cost is high. Why? Memory modules that go in your PC are currently very expensive, and they're slated to maybe get more expensive. So why? And what is going to happen to the consumer PC market? Well, that's what we're going to discuss here with Carmi Levy on It's Time for Technology Time, a very redundantly named redundant thing we do on the radio every week. Carmi, welcome to the show.
From the Department of Redundancy Department.
Ooh,
good to be with you.
That's a throwback. I've noticed if you go to buy memory and also storage on like Amazon, on any major, PC component retail website, it's twice what it cost 3 months ago. Memory can be up to 5 times what it cost, just a quarter or two ago. What is going on? Why is there a run on memory, computer memory?
Well, just like every story that we talk about these days has some kind of AI connection, so does this one. And we can blame AI for the run-up in prices for both RAM, random access memory, as well as solid-state storage.
So you're telling me when I asked ChatGPT to write a love poem for me to tell me how much it loves me, that desire to use ChatGPT is making my computer cost more?
That's exactly it. Because when you ask ChatGPT that question, what's happening is it's going to a data center. And in a data center, there's a computer. Actually, there are thousands of computers in that data center. And they're all stuffed with memory because AI demands a lot of resources. It demands very heavy-duty, high-end hardware, including a lot of memory. And so AI data centers are buying up all of the memory, all of the storage, so that they can have the most powerful computers anywhere. And what's happening is the industry that manufactures that memory and that storage, they're pivoting to supply the data center market because they can make more money from it. If Google is saying, Google is going to spend $85 billion on outfitting its data centers this year, they would rather sell that than a couple $100 at a time to you and me from a computer store. So that's what's happening. Capacity to make memory is shifting from the consumer market to the data center market, and they're selling to large corporations, meaning there's less available for you and me when we go to the store to outfit our PC, for example, or buy a smartphone or buy a computer. And whatever we can find, it's a lot more expensive because the usual supply-demand thing. It almost feels like, remember what GPUs cost or graphic processing units during the pandemic when prices spiked? Now the same thing is happening with memory, and we can blame AI.
I'm just curious, why is server or corporate or mainframe or data center memory so different than the modules that go in my laptop? Why can't they just make them swappable? Why is this market separated? It feels so artificial to me. I know there's reasons for it. There's something called error correction in memory, which is something, corporations want. If the memory on your computer glitches, once a year and your computer freezes, it sucks, but that's fine for consumer. If Google's memory makes their servers glitch and freeze, that's like a corporate problem. So I kind of get the reason for these market segments, but I feel like it's largely artificial. But all these memory chip manufacturers, they're going all in on the server style memory, and they're just not even making laptop memory, or if they are, it's so expensive. But again, do you have any insight into why these two types of modules are so different?
Yeah, I mean, there are, and I think you explained it perfectly, is that in a data center, the error correction, regulation, there are reasons for additional checks and balances, additional layers of technology so that it works at a higher level. So it isn't exactly the same module that you and I would buy in a store. But the sad reality is there's only so much capacity in RAM manufacturing. There are only so many factories to crank these chips out. And so they've decided that if they will make more money, more margin per memory module if they sell to a data center company as opposed to selling to consumers or into the retail channel. So basically it means there's only so much capacity to go around, and they're going where they can make the most profit, and it isn't from you and me.
The big story, why we're talking about this, what do we think is going to happen to the PC market, the consumer PC market in the next, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, even a year and onward?
We're already starting to see some of that. We're seeing some vendors increase their prices. For example, Framework, which makes modular laptops and computers, they've already started to increase their prices for memory. Other vendors are doing the same thing, or in some cases, they'll sell computers with no memory at all, and then you have to go out and buy it yourself and install it. Larger companies like Apple and Samsung, so far they have been, because they'll buy huge volumes of memory for like over years long contracts. So they're somewhat protected from short-term spikes in pricing.
It's so interesting that Apple's laptops might actually be competitive, not because the prices are going down, but because Apple pre-bought their memory and they're a big enough customer that these manufacturers will continue to make for them.
Right.
Because it's not a small batch of memory that Apple needs on a yearly basis. So everyone else is going to surge, like the price of some random laptop is going to be super expensive because of this, but Apple, their prices might be a little more stable. That's kind of ironic that Apple might be competitive because of what's happening.
It is, and it's an interesting sort of outcome, and certainly if you're an Apple fan, that's good news. But also the clock is ticking. That those contracts will run out at some point, and they can only avoid sort of the storm outside for so long. At some point, even Apple and Samsung might be forced to act, and so we also might see the standard amounts of RAM that ship with computers, as well as smartphones and other devices, start to be constrained. The industry recently moved from, for example, 8 gigs standard to 16 gig standard for the basic laptop, for example. That might sort of come back down to 8 gigs or even less if that continues. And so keep your eyes on this, because the industry is going to try all sorts of things to keep prices down. You may end up buying a computer that's below your minimums if you're not careful and not paying attention to the numbers.
Also, I'm not claiming Apple will be competitive. They may just capitalize off of this and raise their prices. Who knows? I'm not making a claim that your next MacBook is going to be cheaper than a Lenovo or something.
But there are rumors flying of a lower priced Mac laptop in the new year, so we're definitely watching for that.
All right, well, let's. We got a few more minutes here in Las Vegas. The world's biggest tech conference is about to start on Sunday. Is it? Mm-hmm. CES 2026. We just have a couple minutes here, Carmi. Anything to look forward to? This is where all the big companies make their new product announcements. Anything you're particularly looking at for this?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like it's like the tech industry falls all over itself, hyping what the big new things, the big trends are for the coming year. Screens are always huge, so micro RGB seems to be the catchphrase this year. It's as well as 5K and 6K, both TVs and monitors. There are some vendors who are hawking glasses-free 3D yet again, but every year this always seems to be a thing, and I'm still not using 3D on my screen, so I wouldn't pay for it. Foldable phones, still huge as well. Samsung likely will have some announcements, as well as Motorola. Apple, of course, they're not at CES. They never are, but rumors are flying that there will be a foldable iPhone later this year. So the funny thing is Apple isn't there, but everyone's going to be talking about it anyway. It is another robotics CES, so all sorts of robots, including vacuum robots. So like, iRobot, the Roomba. So that category will see models from Samsung and from LG. Samsung's been talking about something called a Bali for the last 5 years. They've introduced it twice at CES and have never shipped it, so everyone's kind of hoping that happens. Lots of smartphone smart home devices as well. And what's interesting, this isn't going to get a lot of attention from mainstream consumers, but I'm certainly watching for this. New processors, new chips. AMD, Intel, and Qualcomm are all expected to make major announcements here. And so
Great. So I can buy a super fast new chip when I can have no memory to run with it?
I have no memory. That's exactly it. But, the trends and, of course, AI and everything. So, like, whatever announcement you see, there will be an AI component to it. And, of course, that will need a lot more hardware to power it. So, what is the trend in tech? We're going to find out at CES. But again, don't read into it a lot of these announcements with a major grain of salt. Not all of them actually end up reaching store shelves. You're not going to be able to order them from Amazon tomorrow in many cases. There's a lot of hype. The job with CES is really cut through the hype and then, don't get your expectations too high. In many cases, they will be dashed.
Carmi, it's always a joy getting a tech update from you. Thanks for being on the show.
Appreciate being here. Thanks so much, David.
Carmi Levy is a tech analyst from London, Ontario, Canada. After the break, a look at how artificial intelligence has come for academia. Whether we like it or not, academics are publishing their papers using tools like ChatGPT. Is this a productivity miracle? Or is it a bad thing? Generating slop where we need our smartest people most. What do you think? That discussion in a few moments.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. The show that asks the questions other shows are afraid to ask. The Last Show with David Cooper.
AI has come for academia. Whether you like it or not, academics are using AI to publish their papers. But is this a productivity miracle? Is it a good thing, a bad thing? Or is it changing how research gets written, judged, and even rewarded? Well, we're here to discuss this with business school professor at the University of California, Berkeley, Toby Stuart, who's also the author of Anointed, The Extraordinary Effects of Social Status in a Winner-Takes-Most World. That's available wherever books are sold. Toby, I've said a mouthful, but welcome to the show.
Thanks, David. Great to be here with you.
So you wrote a paper analyzing how academics use AI in papers. I got to ask, did you use AI to help you write that paper?
Fair question. Well, I will say I'm one of those who believes that AI is going to change everything about everything, and I use it all day long. I don't use it a ton to write, but I would. It's just I love writing. Like it's almost recreation for me. So I don't use it much to write, but I use it for literally everything else.
Okay, fair enough. I think there's a lot of doom and gloom. We hear phrases like AI slop, deep fakes. We hear things about people getting nonsense papers published just to boost their public profile for whatever reason. There's a lot of negatives about AI in academia. Do you want to outline what some of those are as you see them before we get to some of these potential positives?
Sure. So let me kind of generalize there and say that this is the greatest, largest two-edged sword ever created. So nearly everything about AI, there's something amazing. So AI is going to be literally amazing for scientific production. And there are also some really crappy things about it. And so there's tons of AI slop. You can, as the models get better and better, as they have been getting better and better, you can come closer and closer and closer to this prompting a paper that has all the shape, structure, form, appearance of an original scientific paper, but it might have errors and not be amazing at this point. So there is a lot of AI slop for sure. There is also an enormous contribution already of these models to scientific understanding, scientific methodology, scientific research. And the better the models get, the more it's actually going to see, the more we're going to see them like actually taking over large fractions of scientific production.
Can you give me an example of areas where it's helped uncover new discoveries or learn things that we haven't discovered before?
Oh, it's absolutely wild. So, I mean, probably the biggest thing we talk about up till this point remains AlphaFold, which is the which is the Google Nobel Prize winning algorithm sort of slash approach to identifying protein structures. And it's, I mean, literally we've gone from we can't do this to we have identified the structure of 2 billion proteins and all the information's on the internet. Like almost overnight that happened.
And from that, new medicines, new medical technology, things like that.
But also new materials, new more environmentally friendly materials. I mean, you won't see the end. It'll be a century before you see the end of the understanding that we've acquired just from this. But that's just one example. So the models are used to expedite scientific production. They're used to do things we've never been able to do before, and that will continue. I think it will pick up steam, if anything. But at the same time, it has because they've already radically changed the production of science, they've also created a lot of problems. One is what you would call AI slop. The second is, and I think this too goes far beyond science, but there's a general thing that's transpiring now, which is it went from expensive to nearly free to create expert level content. And that messes with an enormous number of social systems that are formed around it's costly to produce content. And one of those social systems is the peer review system in science, right? I mean, that kind of depends on voluntary work within the profession. It's already taxed prior to the LLMs in terms of having high quality scientists review one another's work, but double, triple, quadruple, quintuple the volume of scientific output and what's going to happen to the peer review system.
This seems like an existential crisis if we're not able to properly peer review these dense scientific papers as quickly as we would like. How do we know whether the science is good or not that is AI written?
So again, let's just, for the benefit of your audience, let's generalize that and say, like, we could be talking about science, but we could also be talking about patent applications, or we could be talking about college applications, or we could be talking about job applications, or we could be talking about music or book proposals or op-eds. Like, it's across all of those domains and 1,000 more, right? We have these institutions that are built around kind of humans creating a certain finite amount of content. And when you take the cost of content production away, you are going to have, a set of challenges. Peer review, my view is it's inevitable that we're going to have to move to, and this would be peer review in science, but it will be much of the world. We are going to move to a situation in which we have agentic reviewers reviewing largely agentic created manuscripts. So you're going to have to use AI.
In lay terms, using AI to review AI papers?
Exactly. But you're going to have specialized AI systems that are very much trained to do this job. But it is going to be a lot of AI looking at AI. And of course, for the foreseeable future, there'll be humans somewhere in this loop. But I think that as the volume of academic output, scientific production increases, I think it's pretty much inevitable that we need some kind of triage process, and that process is going to involve AI agents down the road.
One striking thing here that we haven't mentioned is non-English speaking researchers, some of which might be great, amazingly competent ones, some of which not. It happens with English researchers as well. AI allows them to publish in English speaking or English language journals. Is this a leveling of the playing field? Is this a good thing? Getting researchers from some other corner of the world able to now publish in a prestigious journal that only accepts English papers?
Yeah, so I actually think this piece of it, and this we have this article in Science and the that just came out, and that this piece of it's actually mostly in the supplement, though we mention it in the main text. But the way to think of it is this. The global language of science is English, for better or worse. I mean, that's kind of happened. So most of the preeminent global scientific journals are published in the English language. The cost of writing in English is very much a function of your native language. So there is, take China, take Japan, take Korea. There's outstanding science being done there. To every extent peer to the science done at the great universities in the United States. But the cost of taking that science and communicating it to an English language speaking audience is much higher. So what the LLMs have done is they have lowered the cost of writing in English particularly for non-native English speakers. And that will lead to a global market share shift in scientific output, right? So if English remains the language of scientific output, what you'll see is a larger and larger fraction of science being produced by scientists outside of the US, because now it's much less expensive for them to write in English, so to speak.
Taking a step back, based on the excitement you're sharing and some of these productivity gains I'm hearing about, are we at like an golden age of scientific productivity and creativity, or are we at the beginning of an era where there's going to be all sorts of new problems introduced that we don't know how to grapple with in academia?
David,
or is the answer both?
It's the greatest two-edged sword that's ever existed. So the answer is absolutely both. It is like, I mean, I struggle on a daily basis to actually even understand my job in this world. Like, teaching is going to radically change. How people learn is going to radically change. How research is produced is radically changed. But at the same time, I have never been more interested or excited about the science in my field. Like, my mind is blown on a daily basis about what's coming out, what people are doing, what they're able to do, about how cool it is, about how creative it is. And already much of that creativity isn't human, it's robot driven.
Well, you can check out Toby Stuart's book, Anointed: The Extraordinary Effects of Social Status in a Winner Takes Most World. That's available wherever books are sold. Toby is a business school professor at the University of California, Berkeley. Toby, thank you for joining me. This was a great chat. I've enjoyed having you on the show.
Yeah, me too, David. I've loved it.
Coming up next, the age-old question. When kids get breaks from school, like over the summer, do they lose all their education, or is it good for them? You'll get the answer to that in a moment.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Every day at Sierra, you'll find top brand apparel, footwear, and gear for 20 to 60% less than department and specialty store prices. And during clearance time at Sierra, those incredible prices are 40 divided by 2.5, carry the 1, even lower. And when you shop clearance at Sierra, you can save a whole lot more on everything you need to get active and outside. That's a lot of saving. Epic brands, vast selection, teeny tiny prices. That's Sierra. Visit your local Sierra store today or shop online at Sierra.com.
We're here because your heightened awareness deserves heightened entertainment. The last show with David Cooper.
Every summer, parents panic. Will kids lose their math, their reading, everything they were taught in school? Or is doing nothing for the break exactly what their kid's brain needs? Is holiday learning loss a real thing or just overstated? Well, that's what we're going to discuss here with Sarah Jefferson, a senior lecturer in education at Edith Cowan University in Australia. Sarah, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
You give this idea that kids lose their learning in the summer a formal name, and you call it summer learning loss. And I feel like parents immediately panic. Is that fear justified? Is it exaggerated? What happens to kids during the summer?
Wow, summer learning loss. It's very poetic sounding, isn't it? Look, I'm going to be really frank with you and say there are going to be some kids who will make losses over the summer break. There will be some kids who make gains over the summer break. What we know is that roughly in the end, it all comes out in the wash. And by the time you're a couple of weeks back into school, everyone's kind of back on track. So I would say to parents, of all the things that you are going to panic about with your children, and there will be a really long list by the time they've finished high school, this is probably sitting somewhere down towards the bottom.
Interesting. You mentioned some kids are affected more than others. My girlfriend, Miranda, she's a bit of a nerd. I feel like she read every summer as a kid and probably came back to school smarter. I was just playing video games, went to summer camp. I probably came back dumber. That uneven distribution, can you tell me about it a bit?
It's really interesting you say that, though. You were just doing a different skill set. You were working on a different skill set to the one that she was working on. So
that's what I should have said to my parents as a kid when they told me to get off the computer. I'm working on a different skill set.
And it's equally valid. So again, that's why I sort of say to parents, don't fret about it. As long as they're doing something. You know, gaming is fine. Gaming is about interacting, thinking critically and creatively. It's not fine when it's for 6-hour blocks in a row. Nothing is fine. Like, we don't run marathons or exercise for that period of time. But doing bits of things is totally fine. The way to kind of maybe approach it a little bit differently, I guess, David, is to kind of think about, well, the stuff that you were doing required some maths. You know, you had to do some maths work within the gaming and the critical thinking that you were doing when you were doing that, just as much as your girlfriend was enjoying reading her books over the summer break. It's all learning, it's all just different kinds. Here in Australia, one of the things that we get all of our kids in Australia pretty much to enroll in, if they're coastal, is swimming lessons. So they do a ton of swimming lessons over the summer vacation. Now, is that a valid type of learning? It's a life skill. So that's what this period of time can often be used for, is to kind of develop those life skills like cooking, learning to play games with your family. It's all there. Learning doesn't just have to be what's in the curriculum.
So some learning done, some learning kind of forgotten. A few weeks into school, likely you'll get caught right back up and remember what you quote unquote forgot. The loss of learning is sort of maybe a negative. The picking up of skills is a positive. But let's talk about just the rest and the reset, kind of just getting our brains out of that hardcore school environment.
Yes, this is a topic that's actually based in research, grounded very strongly in research, in that particularly for adolescent brains, which are undergoing what we call that pruning. And I've done a little TEDx talk on that one, where I talk about how from basically the back to the front of the brain rewires itself completely during the adolescent years. So essentially they're starting from scratch. So while all of that is happening, they need a lot of time to rest, recuperate, and sleep. Did you sleep a lot when you were a teenager, David?
I did not. I was up late. I was getting up early. I regret. That phrase, you'll sleep when you're dead? I disagree. Sleep when you're alive, It'll refresh you. I didn't. That's probably why I'm so dumb today. But I wish I had. Because
that, again, is such a critically important thing to be aware of, is just actually kids need sleep, and they need a lot of it, and they need a lot more rest than they think they do, which is not the same as, parents' views on the topic either. But yeah, that's super important, as I say. The other thing to be aware of as well is during those years, the sciencey part of all of this as well is the reward central part of your brain. Okay, there's these things coming out of them, these dendrites, I guess, for want of a better word. That's not the correct term, but they're called the striatum, and they are really, really receptive to reward, especially during the teenage years. So if they're gaming, or if, you take them out for a delicious meal, or if they're enjoying a book they're reading or a subject that they're doing, they're going to love that subject or enjoy that meal or whatever it was way more than if we tested the results of you or me as a self-regulated adult. And that's because the striatum are on fire during the adolescent years. So if we can tap into kids' learning, if kids want to learn or do study or work on skill sets during the school holidays, it's a really good time to do it when it's safe, quiet, you've got a bit more space to do those things. By all means, have at it, and know that the rewards are going to be really, really astronomically high for them. It's when we force them to do things that they don't want to do, you will get the inverse proportionate response, and they will hate it and resent you. So you walk a fine line.
Interesting. Okay, so you're making a good case for long summer breaks. Like, the rest helps their brains develop. The time out of school helps them grow skills that they might not have learned in school. What happens to kids when they don't get extended downtime like that? What would happen to kids if we just kept them in school for 12 months of the year?
Well, we would probably have a really spectacular apocalyptic meltdown, the likes of which the world has never seen.
All right, I'm listening. You've piqued my interest. Slightly dramatic, but maybe it's true.
A little bit of hyperbole never did anyone any harm. I think it's really important to be aware, if as adults we require annual leave every year because we are exhausted and we are burnt out from the demands of our job, we're asking young people, and often little kids right up to the age of like 18 or 19, don't even get me started on uni students, but when we're talking about that particular demographic of people, you're asking them to go into 5-6 different classrooms every day for 50, 60 minutes, learn a bunch of things in this class, go to the next class, learn a bunch of things, move to the next class. And then you're saying, yeah, we'll keep them at it year round, 12 months of the year. I'm not sure about you, but I need a break. My brain needs to sleep. My brain needs to prune what's not relevant in order to retain what is relevant. And when we don't give kids rest, or a change of scenery. And that's why sport and physical activities and things like that are super important as well, alongside the learning. And just as we would do that, we wouldn't, if you're coaching a kid to become a champion rower, you're not going to have them out there rowing all day and all night, because again, you'd burn them out. You have to mix that up with weights training, bit of cardio, and it's got to be spread over a series of days, and you've got to have rest days. It's the same thing with schools.
Some schools, some parents, some teachers, they sort of give kids work over the holidays, like putting academic pressure on them during that time. I imagine that can backfire as well. It's not quite as severe as keeping kids in school for 12 months, but giving kids a summer reading list or things like that. Could something like that backfire?
Yeah, look, it's one of the things I'll often say is actually reading's really good. You can't go wrong with reading. Your girlfriend was definitely on the right track. What I would say with that is, 15 minutes before bedtime, a 15-minute reading wind down, so you've actually covered off your class text before term starts, is actually future you is going to thank current you for doing that little bit of reading every night. That's the only bit of, and I'm going to use air quotes here, sorry, homework I would ever be prescribing for kids over the summer break. Because again, I'm really passionate about the fact they need time to rest. From personal experience, I can tell you, kids have an amazing capacity to catch up. My youngest son, for various reasons, serious accident, missed 6 months of year 10 of high school. He came back in year 11, having missed all of that time. So he'd missed, and they were kind of like, oh, do we keep him back a year? And I was like, nope, he's going straight in with his peers. And he finished his year 12 with an outstanding mark. He made up everything that he'd lost in terms of the time. So that's why I'm particularly passionate. The research backs me up on this. You do not need to give your kids extra work to do.
Well, Sarah, you've made a good case, and I'm all for holidays for kids now. Sarah Jefferson is a senior lecturer in education at Edith Cowan University in Australia. Sarah, I've enjoyed the chat. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Coming up next, what if some people brush off climate change science not because they doubt it, but because caring about the environment feels unmanly? It happens. We'll tell you more about it in just a minute. I'm David Cooper. This is The Last Show.
Starting a business can seem like a daunting task, unless you have a partner like Shopify. They have the tools you need to start and grow your business. From designing a website to marketing to selling and beyond, Shopify can help with everything you need. There's a reason millions of companies like Mattel, Heinz, and Allbirds continue to trust and use them. With Shopify on your side, turn your big business idea into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
Exploring both interstellar and interpersonal space-time continuums. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Climate change. What if some people downplay it, not because they don't necessarily believe in it, but because they don't want to look soft? They feel that believing in it looks, not masculine. Could caring about the planet feel unmanly to some guys? And if so, why? Well, we're here to discuss that with someone who's done research in this area. His name is Michael Haselhuhn. He's a professor of business administration at the University of California, Riverside. Michael, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
How does one go about even noticing a gender gap around climate concern? Like, what made you interested in this area of study?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's, overwhelming evidence that the climate's changing, and some people just either refuse to believe it or refuse to admit that they believe it. And so there's been a lot of research trying to figure out, what's going on. And one of the most consistent findings has been this gender gap. So women tend to be more, at least willing to voice their concern about climate change. But it's kind of an open question, why? Why are men less willing to talk about it?
You'd think that people's lack of belief in this stuff would be based in science. Maybe they're looking at the wrong science. Maybe it's science literacy. I'm kind of surprised to hear that this element comes in. Can you describe it for me a bit? Paint a picture of what this association with lack of masculinity in climate change is?
Yeah, so there's a lot of research in psychology that shows, men really hate it if you tell them you're not a manly man. If you're not as masculine as you should be, and that leads them to do all sorts of strange things. They're less ethical. They are less willing to forgive people, things like that, because they associate forgiveness is that's what women do, for example. So applying this in the climate change, I kind of asked the question. I said, well, what do we think about people who are concerned about the planet? Do we think like, oh, they're very caring, they're warm, they're compassionate? And if they are, well, those are things we kind of associate with women more so than men. And so if a man is, trying to appear manly to others, maybe they're going to try to avoid being caring and compassionate.
Can't you believe in climate change and also not care about the planet? Like, I feel like that link there isn't always there for some people, but that's perhaps a side conversation. So how does this all work? Like, how does this mechanism happen? How does one come to associate this caring for the planet with lack of masculinity?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing to consider. It's not something that I've touched on in my research, but there's similar research out there on things like being vegetarian. Vegetarians are perceived as being less masculine than men who eat meat, things like that. There just really seems to be this association in our minds that caring about sustainability is more feminine than masculine.
At the risk of derailing again here, for me, like veganism is more manly because the food doesn't taste as good and it takes courage to eat it. Okay, I've completely derailed here. Back on track. Walk me through the study. Like you surveyed a large group of people. What did you ask them and what did you find?
So there are a few different studies in the paper, but the basic idea behind all of them is it asked a big group of people. Sometimes it was both men and women. Sometimes it was just men. And I measured, how much do you care about protecting your masculinity? How stressed out do you get if you feel like your masculinity is being threatened? And then I asked them, what do you think about climate change? Are you skeptical? Are you concerned about the climate changing? Things like that. And across all these studies, the more a man was stressed out about appearing masculine, the less concerned they were about the climate.
Is there a role of warmth in all of this?
Yeah, there is. So in the final study in the paper, we said, I'm sorry. So to start the paper, I did kind of confirm that people perceive climate change as more feminine, that people who are concerned about the climate are warm and compassionate and caring and things like that. And then in the final study, I did the same measurements that I just described, but also asked the men, to what extent do you think that appearing warm is a feminine thing, or warm and caring and compassionate? And there was an interaction there. So the guys who are really concerned about their masculinity and who also really think that warmth and caring and stuff, that's a feminine thing, those were the men who were the least willing to say, oh yeah, there's a problem here.
Now, I imagine not all men shared this pattern. Like, I imagine some men believed in climate change who believed that warmth was a good thing.
Yeah.
What seems to protect us from these kind of more negative things, and believing that warmth is a bad thing and not believing in climate change? What would protect a man from that?
Well, so you're absolutely right that there are individual differences, right? So, there are different definitions of masculinity. So you can, yes, being the strong guy who stands up for himself and things like that. Well, you can also say, well, being a man is taking care of your family and loving and showing compassion to your children, things like that. So there's a lot of noise going on in how men are defining what it means to be a man. But to more directly answer your question, there's been some really interesting work on interventions. How can we make men feel like men, but in more productive ways? People have suggested men should take up mountain biking. Like, that's a good way to go out and exercise and prove to yourself that you can be a man. And then you're not as worried about it when it comes time to talk about the planet, things like that.
Interesting. If someone hears this and think, are you saying all men are fragile? Which, yes, we are, but that's besides the point. How would you respond without turning your research into a blame game kind of a thing, saying men are all wrong?
No, that's right. It's we're talking about averages here. And we're talking, this research has been conducted primarily with heterosexual men in Western countries, for example. So there's going to be a ton of variance cross-culturally, and there's a ton of variance within, North America, for example. It's certainly not trying to paint all men as being the same here.
Finally, I think I might have a quick fix for this, but I'm not the smartest person in the world, so maybe this is just this is wishful thinking. But rather than framing caring about the planet as like feminine or overly warm, what if we framed it like it was protection, it was duty, it was strength, like we really want to do this strong thing to protect our planet? Could that maybe change someone's opinion on it?
Absolutely. I think so much of this is just how you frame the situation. And like I was saying earlier, there are different types of being a man, right? Different ways to think about what it takes to be a man. So I think you're onto something. If we can reframe it as strength, maybe we'd see a difference. Maybe we should run this study together.
You don't want that. You don't want that. I'll drive your study to the ground. Any other things you want people to take away while we're talking from your research?
No, I just think that drawing attention to this question of why do people deny all the evidence that's stacking up here? It's important. It's important to think about. And so, fun to do research.
Well, I appreciate your conversation on it. Thanks for being here, Michael. Thanks for your time.
Thanks so much for having me.
Michael Haselhuhn is a professor in business administration at the University of California, Riverside. It's Friday night. Here's a great weekend idea for you. The Last Show podcast. To find it, head to our website. That's www.lastshow.pizza. That's .pizza, not .com. Yes, pizza is a real domain name. Anyway, on our website, you can find our podcast. Of course, you can just type David Cooper Last Show in your favorite podcast app's search bar and we'll pop up. Okay, here's what you can do this weekend with the show. You can play interviews that you loved on the program for your loved ones. You can listen to entire nights of the show that you missed or catch some of our bonus podcast-only content. That's stuff you wouldn't have heard on the radio program. The Last Show podcast. Check it out and subscribe. The #1 podcast, according to people who only listen to the Last Show podcast and no other podcasts. Coming up after the break, a booming new economy, the paw print economy. Pet tourism is big bucks. We're talking private planes, resorts, and it's changing tourism. Details in a minute.
Want to be part of The Last Show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. Broadcasting intimate details and useless information from an undisclosed location in New York City. The Last Show with David Cooper.
We'll spend big bucks on travel for beaches, fancy hotels, even fresh air. But what happens when Rover is invited too? Rover's a dog in this example, in case that wasn't clear. There is a booming paw print economy and it's changing tourism. So let's chat about it here with leisure, hospitality, and tourism researcher at Leeds Beckett University in the UK, Laurie Hoy. Laurie, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So let's talk about this paw print economy. I mean, I'd never heard of it, but I'm sure I understand it. It's just the whole of everything associated with people blowing money on their pets. But can you give me a more kind of rigorous definition and tell me what some of these services that hotels provide are?
Yeah, so the term paw print economy really refers to, that rapidly growing market and spending that's focused on our pets. And essentially, it's that economic impact of our pets, and it is particularly transforming travel and hospitality. Kind of just to give you a little perspective, the global pet industry is expected to grow from about $350 billion US to about $500 billion by 2030. And pet travel alone in that's representing a multi-billion-dollar segment. So and there's all kinds of different services and things being offered, whether that be some of the shared jet charters that are available. You can have in-room dining with your pet. You can have a pet concierge that can take your dog for walks or, they can help you secure some pet sitting while you're there. So there's quite a lot out there and it's really booming. And the new things there are a lot of new things that people are coming up with.
Chartering a jet, at that point, I realized this is not just a cute trend, someone snapping pics of their pet in maybe a nice hotel room. This is like a huge economy, isn't it? People make jokes about this, but when we talk about what travelers want the most, pets really come into focus. What are these pet travelers looking for, really?
Well, I mean, I think it's important to think about why people are traveling with their pets. And there's kind of a variety of reasons, and leisure being one of them that's really driving this. But they also do travel with pets for business, relocation, specialist care. And we've seen a trend where people really view their pets as family. So it depends on where in the world, but about 80 to 97% of people who have pets, really view them as a family member. So that causes a strong attachment. And what people are really wanting are to have these positive experiences. They're traveling with their pet as a companion. They're looking, some research that I did, one of the really big drivers and motivators is that it's about well-being for the pet. But then equally, you do have people, who travel with their pet because it's one of the better options for avoidance of things like, anxiety with separation or the guilt you might feel for leaving them behind. Or, there are those costs, of course, too, if you have a pet sitter or boarding instead of bringing the pet with you.
I do feel guilt when I leave my tiny black cat Tomato behind. He is our son. My girlfriend Miranda gave birth to him. No, she didn't. But I'm just saying he's really a member of the family. Are hotels, Airbnbs, travel experiences, are they moving more from like, okay, your pet's allowed maybe with a $50 charge, but they can never leave the room, to kind of that mindset that pets are family? Like, are places where I can spend money and travel really understanding that?
I'm not really sure that they are. I mean, I think there definitely is a component where it's improving. I mean, we are seeing this drive where there's this acceleration of wanting to include pets in our different leisure activities. And I think there is still a lot going on with some of those, fantastic headlines or those real, PR hooks about, maybe paw succo reception with your pet or a pet spa kind of thing. But there's research that really says that although those amenities matter, and in-room amenities are great conveniences when you're traveling with a pet, maybe a loaner bed or bowls, that kind of thing. But people are also really looking for the service design, some thoughtful service design around, hey, where's the room located? Is there activity support? So can you give me guidance where to walk with my dog? Is it a safe environment for my pet? What about if we have an emergency? Do you have an emergency vet number for me? That kind of thing. And our staff really welcoming. I recently had an experience at a hotel where it was kind of clear a lot of the staff was actually scared of dogs, and having a small white fluffy dog, I was kind of surprised, but you really want to have that welcome when you come. So I think there's still some work to be done, and definitely too on things like pet policies. You see some of the stuff about whether they're allowed or not, what's the fee, what are perhaps some restrictions, but often policies are much more extensive than that. They can be 2, 3, 4 pagers. It's to kind of know what you're getting into. It's not always shared and open, until you arrive. And then sometimes that can be a bit too late.
COVID seemed to, change the way we think about pets. I remember there was a run on dog and cat adoptions during COVID. Everyone was trapped inside. A lot of first-time pet owners. Did any of these changes, this paw print economy, did it boom from that period?
Yeah, it did. I mean, we have seen a gradual rise in pet acquisition generally over time. And then we did see that boom, and research has kind of shown it was particularly between March and the end of June of 2020. But it's gone back to being a bit more its standard gradual increase. But that being said, about 56% of people globally have a pet. It's higher in certain places in the US. It can be upwards of 73% of homes. But what's really interesting is that a lot of the people with pets now are first-timers. So about half of people are first-time pet parents. And what's really happened is an acceleration in wanting to include them in our leisure activities. So whether it's going to a cafe or a restaurant or, an outdoor festival, something like a dog fest, recreation like paddleboarding or kayaking, or, just generally traveling, taking your pet on your family vacation. There's definitely been a change in what people want to do and how they want to spend their free time with their pets.
What type of travelers are there, and what kind of experiences are they looking for? Is it just access to green space? Is it the hotel staff being pet friendly? What are some of these things people are looking for?
So we've really kind of identified different segments of people who are traveling with their pets. And I think that's really probably a very key thing for industry. I'm not sure that they have necessarily gone down the route of thinking that hard about it sometimes, because you have your pet-centric travelers who, these people, it is really all about the pet, and they are very worried about, the well-being and the enjoyment of the actual vacation with the pet. And then you've got people who are more seeking activity and experience. So think maybe camping and hiking together with your dog. Then you've got family inclusion people who, of course, the pet's front of the family. They're going to come along on, all of our different vacations. And then you've got convenience people where really it may be about you don't have other pet care available, or you're just trying to get from point A to point B and you need a place to be for the evening. So it's kind of thinking about that. But what we do see is one thing that really drives planning is when people are traveling with their dogs, they're looking at green space. So they want to know, what's that green space surrounding the accommodation? So at a hotel, is there a place to take the dog out for the last break of the evening? Or if you're staying at something like a cottage or an Airbnb, is there a fenced yard? And then what's nearby for walks and experiences? Because one of those big things that people really want is to do activities. Certainly to be able to take care of the basics, but also to do activities, to do, for example, a nice walk with the dog. So green spaces are really key.
And for hotel owners or tourism operators who are getting this wrong from the perspective of pet owners, what's one piece of advice for them?
I think one piece of advice is that people are traveling for a variety of reasons, but the outcomes are kind of the same. You have a chance there for things like strengthened bonds and memory making, building skills, confidence, well-being for the person and the dog. And if you could kind of think broader about that service design from beginning to end, what's the arrival look like? What's their experience like when they're there? I mean, you really will delight people and their pets. And then there's a lot of opportunity there, for positive word of mouth, people coming back again.
My last question is a quick one. My cat hated flying. He's done it once when we moved from the West Coast to the East Coast. He escaped from his carrier. It was a scene. How much would it cost to charter a jet for my cat?
Well, it's one thing to do the private charter, but what's quite popular right now, there are the shared private jet charters. So it depends on exactly where you're going, but kind of roughly around $8,000 for a one-way.
Great, very affordable.
Yeah, but there are dogs and cats are allowed.
Well, Laurie Hoy is a leisure, hospitality, and tourism researcher at Leeds Beckett University in the UK. Laurie, I've enjoyed the chat. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Up next, you've heard of dynamic pricing for airlines, for rideshare apps. But what about dynamic pricing for your eggs? That's what one company tried, and the consumers fought back. What happened? We'll tell you about it in a minute. I'm David Cooper, and this ain't the first show.
Broadcasting from the neutral zone, where every perspective gets diplomatic immunity. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Dynamic pricing. It's very exciting for the consumer. You get to pay whatever the company thinks you will pay in that moment. And while we accept it for things like flights or maybe rideshare apps, do we really want it for our eggs? Well, that is the question here we are going to discuss with retail analyst Bruce Winder. Bruce, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on, David.
Is the consumer really ready to pay more for their eggs if demand is higher, or even worse, if AI thinks you're willing to pay more for your eggs?
No, absolutely not. I mean, this is one of sort of the sacred areas that companies need to be really, really careful on. Like you said, we're used to dynamic pricing in certain verticals, but normally that has something to do with supply and demand. It has something to do with timing or privileges, but food is such a basic, right, if you will, for humans. So it really is not a good mixture when you look at dynamic pricing or even testing different types of prices on food. It's just something that's taboo right now in society.
The consumer revolts. Like, I get if I go to supermarket A and eggs are a certain price per dozen, and I go to supermarket B, they might be a little more, a little less. But the idea that I go to the supermarket, or I have a shopper like Instacart, or I don't even know if Postmates exists anymore, but Uber or something like this. If I have a shopper go to the store, I would expect to pay the same for that eggs as my neighbor. But that's not what was going on, at least not with the shopping app Instacart, was it?
Yeah, it's a little bit opaque right now, but it sounds like what Instacart is claiming is that they were doing different tests in different at different regions with different customers. And what they're saying is that they were trying to test different price thresholds to make retailers more money, to make sure they're optimizing margin. But by doing that, if in fact that's their direction, they sort of stepped into that danger zone where you really can't charge the same person different prices. Now, consumers are used to being charged different prices in different banners. So if you're a luxury gourmet grocery store and you have amenities such as a butcher and a baker and all kinds of beautiful amenities, consumers will pay more in those stores for the same product versus a discount banner where they've taken all that out. Consumers are okay with that. They get that because there's a difference in what you're getting as part of the value proposition. But when it's item to item, I think the big issue was customer to customer. I think that's what really crossed the line is charging different customers different prices. That's what really, I think, got everyone really angry in this case.
With like airline pricing, I don't know that all airlines do this, but I've heard of technology where they see, the customer's on an iPhone or a MacBook. They own an Apple computer. They might be willing to pay 5% more for the flight, so we'll charge them more. Like, I've heard of things like that, but I can imagine a world where like you walk into the grocery store, a camera scans you, it sees you're wearing a Rolex, and it charges you $10 for eggs instead of $5. Like, it's not quite that far in that direction, but this is like 1 inch towards that, where if I open up Instacart and I order, let's say, a can of milk. Does milk even come in a can? And I get charged more for another. Like, it's just so obnoxious. And when customers hear about it, they definitely revolt. So are you surprised by the announcement that Instacart is not going to be doing this anymore?
Not surprised that they're not doing it anymore. My question is, would they have continued to do it if they didn't get caught? If the investigation wasn't done, right? And I mean, it's a slippery slope. We live in a slippery slope in society where sometimes big companies send up a trial balloon. They sort of try to get something normalized or socialized and start to chip away at it being accepted. And then within a few years, it becomes the norm. But, I'm not sure if that's going to happen in this case. It's interesting, too, with food. I was just thinking about food, too, how there are rescue apps where if you're buying food that's about to expire, you'll pay less for it. But there's just not a lot of situations where they change it by person. But it's not that hard to see in the future a world we live in where this could very well be the norm.
Now, is it up to governments to prevent abuses on dynamic pricing? Is it up to us as consumers to revolt? Like, how is this going to be curbed?
Yeah, it's a great question because, if you sort of lift up the hood and peel back the onion, the way things work.
How much did you pay for the onion, Bruce? That's the real question here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and they charged me more than you. But is companies will try to do something. Governments are supposed to regulate industries to protect the consumer and society, but they don't always do that, as we know.
And when they do, they don't always do a good job. That's not to say I'm not pro the government protecting consumers. I just think when they go to implement these things, they don't always get it right.
Yeah, and that's a fair comment. And that's why I don't have a lot of faith in this not being a future situation, because there's lobbyists. There's also a lot of pressure on governments to increase commerce and taxes. So we really don't know where this is going to go. But in the moment we are now, it's something that I think most consumers are really angry at. And I wouldn't be surprised if Instacart got some significant blowback in terms of maybe even losing some market share, at least in the short run.
I mean, maybe, but they kind of frame themselves as an Uber or Lyft-like company. Yes, you're not taking a ride from point A to point B, but the whole, like, you know, the guy picking your groceries and delivering it to your house, it's kind of framed like that. And so I wonder if they can sneak this past the consumer and not quite get the flack as if a supermarket doing it in store did it. That would be a real problem. I don't know. When I go to hail lifts or whatever, I always ask my girlfriend to pop out her phone, and often the prices are different by a few bucks, and we just go with whoever is cheaper. I wonder if Instacart won't get punished because these kind of like apps where you have a gig economy worker somehow in the middle there, the dynamic pricing model is really much more accepted by the consumer.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. And I mean, that's what I mean. We're not that far off from a world where this could happen. You know, I think the big thing that is preventing this is the price difference per person, which people start to think could be based on income and wealth. And that's where, I mean, if you're a person who's economically challenged, you might say, hey, I can benefit from this. You know, I might be able to pay less for groceries than some guy down the street who has a net worth of $10 million, right?
And they could get in the arbitrage market, which for anyone who that word is a fancy one, but basically like I buy my eggs cheap because I'm low income and the app decides I can't afford them. And then I sell them to the rich guy for cheaper than the app. I wonder if I could do that.
Yeah, and that might become sort of part of, a basic income approach, right? You don't know where the world's going, right? But definitely, I mean, one of the big things that's been a very big topic recently is this K-shaped economy where there's a significant difference between, the wealthy and the not wealthy, and we're seeing it in retail sales. So, will there be a time when the wealthy subsidize the poor as it relates to food prices? I don't know. Is that, George Orwell-ish type 1984 thinking? I don't know.
Well, considering it's probably AI, like, dynamically analyzing me as a consumer, deciding what I might pay for a commodity and then charging me that, it is a little bit Orwellian. It is a little bit like a massive computer system deciding what I pay. This technology is going to be more and more accessible to more and more retailers. It's going to get deployed in new and creative ways. I'm almost certain of it because there's no downside for corporations other than backlash. And as more companies do it, I mean, Uber's already doing it, airlines are already doing it. The next industry that enters the market, like the next type of store that enters the market, is just one more added to the list. And we're going to get more and more used to it. Is there anything you want consumers to know about this stuff as it happens?
I think the only thing I would say to consumers is try to be aware, try to continue to price shop as much as you can, look for these things. Not everyone has time to do so, but just be aware that they might be happening.
All right. Well, Bruce, I enjoyed the chat about this one with you. Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks, David. Take care.
Bruce Winder is a retail analyst. That's a wrap on the show. Hope you're having a great start to the year. Here's a way to start it even better than you already started it. The Last Show podcast. Search David Cooper Last Show in your favorite podcast app. We'll pop up and subscribe. On it, you can hear interviews that you loved on the show again, catch nights that you missed, and more. I'm David Cooper. This was not the first show, second, or third, but it's our show, and we're glad you listened to it. We'll catch you on Monday.
'Tis the season to stream on Stack TV. Whether you've been naughty or nice, we've got what you want. The first episode of Top Series for free. All Her Fault. He's my son! For free. Devil in Disguise. For free. Tiffany Haddish Goes Off.
We going to Africa.
Building Bombler.
It's time for an update.
Mistletoe Murders.
I've missed this.
All for free. Stream the first episode of these great series and more free this holiday season on Stack TV. Restrictions apply.